fiction, science fiction, horror, fantasy, crime, LGBT, thriller.
You have now entered the House of Mystery.
Welcome back into the House of Mystery. I'm Al Warren, and we got Mr. Michael Hawley co-hosting.
That is correct. I'm back.
You're back. back in black.
And not napping. I'm awake and ready to go.
Yeah. So let's see. We're going to just jump right into this. We'll do more gabbing later. And today we've got a writer, and he's got a book called Immune, Rise of the Inflicted. Seth Voorhees. Thank you for being here.
No problem. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Seth, let's first time on the show. So when did you start writing? Where did it all begin for you?
When I first started writing, so with the book, you can tell by the title, I'm a dark fiction author, horror author, whatever you want to call it.
It's not a comedy?
No, it's not. Well, there might be some comedy in it, but I don't know if you want to consider it a comedy. But I would say the love affair started when I was in middle school with Goosebumps. I'm sure we all remember those books. Just trying my best to write middle school, so I'm sure none of them were good, but I did my best to create whatever stories I could. I didn't actually write my first official story. It was a small, short novel in my senior year of high school. So that was my first actual attempt, but I really didn't start taking it seriously, like career-wise, since, 2017. So when I was 30, kind of around there.
So what do you find the biggest challenge when you write?
I think just sitting down and trying to find the right amount of time that I would prefer versus the time I'm allowed, because I also have some other full-time jobs and responsibilities. If I had it my way, I'd want to write for 5 hours every morning, 4,000 words, but sometimes I can't, depend on the schedule. I might have to satisfy myself with 500 or 1,000, maybe 2, just kind of depends on the day. So definitely time.
Do you have to be in a certain mood too? Does that matter?
For me, a little bit. I always write in the morning, so it's the first thing I do. I wake up, I have a little prayer and meditation I do, and then I make coffee, of course.
Yeah.
And then
Must have coffee.
Oh yeah, need the coffee. And then I sit down and start writing. I usually stop around, I won't write past 3. Around 3 in the afternoon, my imagination's worthless, just absolute worthless, so I don't try after
Is that when you have the beer?
No, yeah. No.
No, it just
Right?
gets tired, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it just gets tiring. It's, I think my imagination's like the body, you have to have exercise and nutrition to take care of it. And, writing and reading is the nutrition and the exercise. But yeah, it gets worn out. It gets tired. It needs rest.
So let's talk about this book, Immune. Now, I noticed that it seemed like it was published back in 2019, but now you've got this September 4th, 2025. So is this a revamp, or what's going on here?
Yeah, so it was originally published in 2019. It came out, there's a pandemic narrative, and it had worse timing. It came out December of 2019. So
Wow.
2 months, yeah, right before COVID. So not good. And then through some stuff with the publisher, the rights eventually got reverted back to me. And in this summer, I decided, I was kind of torn between going the traditional publishing route, but then I also knew about Ingram Sparks Publishing. It's a self-publishing through them, and they're the world's largest distributor, and they have that buyback insurance, so you can get your book into bookstores around the country. So I had a lot of rejection letters from agents, and eventually I just republished it through them. So it was self-published. But the next book I'm hoping to get the traditional route. But yeah, horrible timing, 2 months before COVID.
Yeah. But a lot of people, I noticed during that time too, there's a lot of people that do publish those types of books during like a pandemic. It's like COVID. You got all these horror writers and science fiction, and they're writing about infections and viruses and stuff like that. So some people are really into it, even when it's happening.
Yeah, they are.
So what's the premise of the story? Like, what goes on in this story?
So the premise is basically about a pandemic virus that takes over the world. The main character's name is Wyatt. And eventually, through the struggles and everything the country's going through, they eventually discover that if you are blood type A positive, which is mine, by the way, so I didn't get real creative with that. If you are A positive blood type, you are immune from the virus. And so eventually because the idea came from swine flu, if you remember when that was a big deal, I sort of thought, what would what would it be like if you were immune from something and you had to watch everyone else kind of suffer? Now, the twist of the story is that at some point they do come into zombies. There's a little bit of a zombie aspect, but it's a very short part of the book. I got that idea back when The Walking Dead and Fear the Walking Dead were, the biggest thing in the world. So the twist I have is that eventually they come out of the zombie phase and they form their own group, and that's why they're called the Inflicted. So that's after they come out of the zombie phase, and they basically rebuild the country and then go after the immune. So there's a lot of back and forth between the two sides about, who's going to dominate the world and create it in their image. And
is it really a dark story, or do you take it with a kind of a lighter point of view? Like, how do you go through the story?
So it goes back and forth between being dark, but then also, so the character Wyatt, I do have him being a very spiritual person. And so there's a lot of conversation about how he has to keep in touch with his spirituality and his connection with a higher power through all of the, misery that's going on, and, how to stay positive and how to turn it around. And then one of the secondary characters who I fell in love with and actually kind of took over a little bit of the book is named Helen Olsen, and she is a member of the Inflicted, and she has a partner, Tamera, who's a member of the Immune, and they spend a lot of the story going back and forth between having to hide the other one from the group and saving the other person. Eventually, Helen works her way up to becoming the director of the ISC, which is the replacement for the CIA, and she, has this back and forth between her values of, I'm hiding my partner who's immune, but yet I'm fighting this war against the immune. And so I do try to keep a lot of human elements into it and just a lot of that moral struggle. So it's not all dark.
Yeah, no. And so did you find that a subtext came out of this story as you were writing it? Some sort of meaning that's under all this entertainment?
Yeah, I think just, what are you willing to do to help the people you love through hard times? That was, like I said, with Tamera and Helen, just having to hide each other, hiding their love and around society that's not, wanting the other one around because they were going to kill him. And then, of course, Wyatt having to, remain positive in those families dying. So, yeah, just, that old story of what can the human spirit put up with the most during tragedy? How strong is it?
How much do they need to drink,
There is some drinking in the story, I ain't going to lie.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, dark beer for Mike. He only takes...
Oh, okay.
A little porter here and there. Doesn't hurt anybody.
So Wyatt, who is Wyatt? And what's your relationship with Wyatt yourself? Do you see him, hear him, feel him? Do you picture who this character is? See, like your main character? Or maybe describe your relationship with Wyatt.
So Wyatt, which I got the name from Wyatt Earp, by the way, just because I love Wyatt Earp. I like history quite a bit, so that's where I got the name from. And so I did kind of incorporate that kind of attitude with him. But also, so he worked in a residential center for youth, which is tied into me too, because that's been my background, working with adolescents in that field for many years, over 15, 16 now. So I was able to put myself a little bit into the story. And then, like I had mentioned, there's a lot of spirituality, which is a big part of my life. I do have a prayer and meditation life, which is important to me. So I did incorporate as much as I could with that, but then I also tried to make him his own character and be a little more rough around the edges, probably a little rougher than I really am in real life, and gave him a bigger family and tried to separate him a little bit. But yeah, there's a little bit of connection. I think you always put yourself in every character, really.
Yeah, usually some points, and I imagine you also, do you take other, let's say, aspects of people or if you do go to a coffee shop and you kind of observe people in it, do you pick up things from other people and put those into your characters too?
Sometimes, absolutely. Yeah, I might pay attention to like a personality core, and it doesn't have to be people in my normal life too. It could always be, you read a story or watch a documentary or see a movie or something. You're like, oh, that's interesting. I should adjust it and, adapt it a little bit. But yeah, certainly I try to put a little bit of some characters. There's one, let's see, I was trying to think here. One character named Mitch, in the story. He winds up he was a coworker of Wyatt's, and he winds up going down a little darker path and winds up being involved in a terrorist group that tries to take down the inflicted. And so where I came with that was, if you've ever read The Legacy of Ashes and kind of the history of the CIA, there was a little bit of stuff I've read in that book where I tried to put into that character just because I didn't really have a good understanding of that stuff. So sometimes you got to do research. But yeah, if I take anything from an actual individual I know, I try not to make it too noticeable, obviously, because you don't want to get in trouble or, hit. You don't want someone going, why'd you copy me?
Yeah. Well, not only that, I was just wondering if you killed anybody in the book, maybe.
Not in this book. I've read some novellas I've written some novellas that are not published where I've killed a few people. But that's more for journaling and just my personals. Sometimes you gotta do that too.
You guys get you some names and phone numbers we can call them.
Yeah, no.
Get them on, Let's talk about this. Let's clear the house.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, are you thinking about the audience when you write a book like this? Are you thinking about readers because of, COVID happening and all that stuff? And I know you've done it before, but now with the new version, did you do any changes, or do you think about what readers are going to think as you write?
So I did make a few changes when I got the rights back, I went through it a little bit more, adjusted a few things. I mean, I hope readers enjoy it, and I want to write a story that they like and don't feel like their time's been wasted when they read it. But then on the same token, I can't change everything. I can't control people, so hopefully but I do try to keep readers in mind. But then also too, I try to just tell the truth and tell my perspective, and I'm sure there's going to be people who probably will read it and not enjoy it at all, and they'll be like, well, this is terrible or something. I mean, but I try. I think you also can't be too focused on it too, just because, there's always going to be someone who doesn't like what you do.
How violent or how much sex action and stuff like that, when we talk about that, that's sort of when we're talking about readers and what they are aware of or what you're thinking of when you write it, because it's a more sensitive world, right? So
yeah,
how far does it go in a book like this, or do you just go all the way and let it happen as it goes?
With Immune, I try hard not to go too far because, like I said, I worked in the field of adolescent development for a long time. So when I was writing Immune, I was actually working in a residential center. So I tried to tone it down just in case they were to want to read it, which they do. When youth know you, they're like, oh, you got a book? Well, that's cool. I want to buy it and I want to read it. So I try to limit to where it's appropriate for them. So you could almost say I write more for young adults, even though it's fiction and dark fiction. So there isn't really any sex. I mean, the violence, I would say, it's nothing they can't handle, but there is some. I mean, there's zombies getting killed and stabbed and blown up. And, there's buildings blown up, but I don't go into such graphic detail that, it's going to gross you out.
You don't go out there and get live action burning up places and stuff like that.
Make your own ideas.
Yeah, get your ideas. Yeah, so you can see how it really works. Now, what do you think you got out of this project? So before you started writing it to when you wrote it, and now that it's published and out there and stuff like that, do you think it sort of changed your perspective on life or people, or does it make any difference in you?
I think because, like I had mentioned, I really didn't take writing seriously until about 2016. I think I was 30 at the time. And so I really wanted to just get back into fiction writing more, not so much as a hobby, but just as something I could look at. And so Immune was really my guinea pig. I had to relearn, if that makes sense. Like I had to really relearn how to do it, and, had to get back into the habit of editing and what does that look like. And so when I look at my second run through, which just happened this summer, I could already see how much I'd changed as an author just through the process of that many years having gone by. So I could see my growth. So definitely, I feel like I got more out of it now when I went through it over the summer than I did then. I think back then I was just more proud of myself that I did it. I was just like, oh, I got a book published. That's awesome. I got a publisher, and I was just more proud of it, if anything else. And now I feel more of that accomplishment and, seeing how I've progressed, which has been a real good boost for, your ego. And of course, given me the knowledge that, hey, I do a pretty good job here. One of the best compliments, though, I will share, when I was working on it the first go around. So like I said, I gave it to a publisher in Wisconsin, and the person who was editing it, she wanted to give it to this retired friend of hers who was for many years a professional editor in New York, like the big time, and he went through it and he sent me this very nice letter, saying, hey, thanks for letting me read it. And one of the things he said was, you have a really great talent for knowing what to leave out and what to put in. And that's a talent that you can't teach. You can't teach that in school. And so, I took that as a really good compliment. I was like, well, that's good.
That's always the best ones, rather than the ones you get online and stuff. But does that make you feel a little bit vulnerable? Like when you put your book out like this and the story, it's out on, through Amazon or everybody, so anybody can just sort of say whatever and do whatever, and you're, because nowadays, social media and everything. Does it make you feel a little bit kind of like in the open?
Oh yeah, for sure. Absolutely. You got to be mindful, social media is such a necessary evil at times. It's like anything else. It's a tool and it can be used the appropriate way. That'll help you and benefit you. And if you don't use it correctly, there can be consequences. And I definitely have to be mindful of when I post any advertising on my books. Most sites I haven't had too much trouble with. Facebook's the one where I get more of the negative feedback for some reason. I don't know why everyone's so negative. But I don't have that issue with TikTok or Instagram, but sometimes there is some vulnerability. You get people who, will hate your book for the weirdest thing. They might just leave a comment like, oh, your cover, I don't like the cover, so therefore I'm not going to like your book. Your book is slop, and I'm not going to read you and all your stories here in the future. And it's like, okay, geez, wow. All right. Thanks for
trolls. There's always trolls.
Yeah. So I think you gotta just be mindful of the comments, and I just gotta think. I had a good friend tell me, he's like, you gotta have a mindset with two different people, Seth. You gotta have your author mindset, which is you want everyone to love it and like it, but then you have to have the business aspect, and that person needs to go, once you bought the book, I don't really care if you like it or not. You bought it. So.
Good point.
Which, so yeah, you got to balance the two and try not to let things take too personal. Yeah.
You said that you have such an interest in history that you named your guy Wyatt.
Mm-hmm.
Is that possibly in the future let's say a historical fiction horror kind of thing?
Well, so we're talking about Immune. I do already have, so I have 4 books out. Immune is my second one. My third one was Midglow, and that one actually does have some history to it. It's based around the time of Pearl Harbor, right by Pearl Harbor. And the main character's name is Philip. And he and his companions decide to start robbing banks because, it's the 30s. Everyone's, Great Depression or 40s and all that. And so they wind up finding out that all their money that they've been stealing, it belongs to the same person. And that person eventually finds them and extorts them and says, you can either work for me or you can go to prison. And, he decides to work for him. And they start doing some odd jobs like grave robbing and things like that. And he's a European gentleman, which then you kind of wonder, is he associated with World War II? Because that's what's going on. So that one's more of a mystery with a little bit of horror, but I definitely put a lot of that 1940s genre in it. Kind of romanticized it, even though it's not a romantic time frame in history, but.
Yeah, but Wyatt Earp, I'm telling you, see, I do Jack the Ripper research and right there, so that would be the perfect time for a Wyatt Earp. You got to do that, some kind of Victorian thing.
Right. I've always been wanting to do a Western. I just haven't.
Oh,
the story hasn't quite come to mind yet.
Well, when you need to do research, you can just call Michael. He was around back then,
Oh, sure, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll do that.
See?
He was in college back in the 40s, so,
Okay.
See?
So what's been your favorite part of doing this project?
I think for me, just falling in love with the characters and seeing where they go. So when I originally finished the first draft, it was actually just like a novella-sized, maybe small novel. It wasn't as big, and I was like, there needs to be some other characters to kind of move it along. And as I said before, that's where Helen Olsen came in and her partner, Tamera and Mitch. So they really helped stretch it out and just give more perspective on the world and the two sides going at it. And so that was really fun.
How is your relationship with your characters then? I don't think we've got into that. Did you actually hear them and see them? Is Wyatt a friend of yours in that way? Do you kind of see them that way?
Some. I mean, Wyatt, kind of like I said, I had more of me in that story. Mitch probably had some characteristics of coworkers that I put in there, but then, like I said, I added more with the CIA perspective and had to create a little more darker side personality. And then, Tamera, Helen, they had some personalities of people I knew throughout my career as well. So I kind of could picture those certain people and just, changed it a little bit. So yeah, there was some personal.
Well, what happens to them when the book is done now and you're moving on? Do those disappear for you, or are you going to bring them back somewhere?
With the other stories, I would say once I'm done with my other 3 books. Immune so far has been, I'm done. However, I did leave it open for a sequel. I definitely left it open for it to be a series. And I've toyed around with some ideas of doing a second book. I was thinking mostly centering around Helen this time, just because of her career and her position in the government and how she's just a very unique and brave and strong character. And I would like to pursue that a lot more. So I wouldn't say with Immune, it's done. I've left it open. But with the rest of the books I've written, they're one and done.
With the entertainment, what do you want people to get out of this book? Is there something that you're hoping people take away?
I think just, they get a nice break from the whatever reality they're trying to escape. That's why I love reading. And, just gives you a break from whatever's going on in your life. And hopefully it was enough of a break where they're like, oh, well, good. Okay. A few hours went by and I didn't have to think about, this whatever event's going on in my life. So that's, I think that's really all the best you can hope for.
Whose point of view are you writing this from? Or who are you, when people read it, what are they getting it from?
So it's written in third person, but I like to think it's mostly, like I mentioned earlier, just from that spiritual side of life. Just that, how are you looking at these events? How can you change your perspective? What are the other ways you could look at the tragedy going on? Is there beauty within the darkness and the horror? What can you find out? But yeah, I think that's really what I'm hoping for.
So let's talk about what's next. So you're working on another book or not yet, or where does it sit for you right now?
I am actually. I have one book that's in the editing process right now, with my editor, and then another book that I'm currently working on. I'm still editing. So usually when I edit, well, not usually, this is what I do. Before I give it to my professional editor, I edit it 3 times. I go through it 3 times just to make sure it's as clean as I can make it. And then after 3 times, I can't really see the story anymore. I tell people, like, my eyes are going kind of blind, so I need fresher pair of eyes. So like I said, one with the editor, and then the one I'm writing currently, I think I'm on my third draft for editing. So I have one more round to go. So yeah. And so next year or so, there'll be more projects coming out for sure.
Yeah, you got to keep on going. So listen, you have a website. You do social media where you want readers and fans to find you. Like, where do people contact you?
So I do have a website. So it's SethTVoorhees.com. And then I do have, like I said, a TikTok author account. I also have on Instagram. I do have an author one on Facebook. Yeah, you can find me in a lot of places.
We'll post all of that up on our website as well so people can find it easily and stuff like that. So you're dancing on TikTok for everyone?
I don't dance. Lately, it's been showing. Our family decided to get a rabbit. His name is Snowball. So he's become the center of attention. He sells my books. I kind of wanted to see if a cute rabbit with my books would do better than me, but we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, tell you, that's why I have dogs. Dogs sell. Animals sell. People love it.
They do.
Just have them eating your book.
That's what I thought of too, actually.
Yeah, it just doesn't hurt,
or lay the books down on the ground and train him to, press which one he likes, like hop on it or something. That was my thought.
Yeah, well, that's something to go for. Well, anyway, we appreciate being here. Now, the book, Immune, Rise of the Inflicted, and our guest is the author of this book, Seth Voorhees. So thank you for being here.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Nice speaking with you, Seth.
Nice speaking with you, too.
This has been a production of the House of Mystery Radio Show. To find out more about our show, guests, or hosts, go to our website at houseofmysteryradio.com.